and they're trying to get leased up now because they've got a bank loan. And if you've got a B-class property that's going through like that flip process, if they don't get over 80% occupied, the bank could pull their loan and they would lose their property. So they're more under the gun than you think that they are. So if you ever talk to an investor like Susan, the whole point is we can fill your building up fast so that way your bank doesn't call your loan on you. And if you ever buy another small property in the future, we can do it again. So now you're solving Susan's problems today, and you're making Susan's whole life easier on her next syndication, right? But what Susan cares about is totally different than what Janet cared about, right? Janet, she wants a commission check. She's excited to get you to sign up for a lease for a commission. He's got a bonus, and that bonus probably comes from Susan, right? It's kind of how that works, right? So now, Mark is a realtor. Mark knows every single homeowner in the neighborhood. This happened to me in Philadelphia. I couldn't get a building in Philly to save my life. All these high-rises, like Greystar Properties and stuff, Stay Alfred was already there, Sonder was already there, all the big names were there. So I started walking around neighborhoods like in Fishtown and Northern Liberties, and I saw these 4 rent signs, and I called one, and this guy named Ed showed up, and he met me on the property 20 minutes later. We toured the property. He's like, the owner won't like short-term rentals in this one, but I see what you're up to, and I think I got a couple other owners that'd be interested. And so Mark, or in my case, my Ed, we went from basically landlord to landlord to landlord in an inner city neighborhood and got those like landlords that say yes because of their relationship with the realtor. Now, when I met with our Mark avatar here, I had to get him to trust me because Mark, his reputation's on the line. If he puts a bad tenant in one of these properties, every landlord in the neighborhood knows that Mark is doing weird business now, right? But the moment you're good for business, Mark will do a lot of business with you if you're good for his landlords. See, Mark is gonna protect his landlords. He's not gonna protect you, but the moment that you're a steady check for Mark, because he still gets commission for placements, he'll give you a lot of doors. So the way you pitch Mark on working with him is completely different the way that you pitch Susan, right? Because Susan's the one whose neck is on the line for her own decisions. Mark's, like his neck is on the line for a decision that his landlords could make based on trust that they have with him. Then, just like Josh, Trish is a property manager for a third-party managed organization. It's like, kind of like a Greystar property. And they've got small portfolios, medium portfolios. Her reputation as a third-party fee-based management company is also on the line, just like with Mark as a realtor. So she's got loyalty to her investor landlords, but she gets, basically monthly revenue for every door that's being operated. So her goal is to get as many units operated because they get a fee to manage every property that's filled up. So she gets paid differently than the realtor does, but they're very much in the same ballpark, right? They need to keep their landlords in a trust relationship, but they want volume. So if I'm pitching Susan, I get to pitch volume, right? But I'm pitching volume to solve her problem. If I'm pitching Mark or I'm pitching Trish, I'm pitching them volume that we can do in the future so that way they can get a bunch of commission checks and stuff like that. Now, all of these examples here are multi-deal pitches, right? I'm talking about doing 5, 10 properties with all of them. A lot of you guys are pitching single-family homeowners, and those single-family homeowners, the only door you can give them is one, right? You can't solve their problem at scale. But what you can do is you can talk about the next deal. So kind of the same way that I solved Susan's problem, which is like, hey, give me 10 doors now and I'll give you 10 doors on the next property you buy. You tell a single family homeowner, I'll be your tenant at this one. When you move that bad tenant out that I know you have, I'll be your tenant there. If you go buy another property, I'll be your tenant there. And you become their concierge. They no longer have to search for tenants because paying somebody like Mark to fill a house is expensive, and a landlord gets to cut Mark out. He'll work with you just to save his money on commissions. So know who you're talking to is really the moral of the story here. And the ground rules is pitch in person. In all of these examples and the single family homeowner, you want to get in front of somebody. The way I'm dressed right now is a lot more powerful than if they can't see me in an email. You don't have to dress in a full suit, but I kind of recommend it. Because there's something called executive presence. And when I sit and I talk to a landlord or a real estate agent, I'm pitching and sharing and stuff like this, if I look good, I sound confident, I make good eye contact, my pacing is good, I sound comfortable, they're gonna trust me so much that they're gonna be open-minded to do something that they've never done before. But if you show up with a sideways hat on and a tank top and some flip-flops going, hey, I'd like to rent your property, put it on Airbnb, you get absolutely no credit as a business owner. And in an email, you could be worse than the fitted cap flip-flops guy. You don't know what they see when they open up an email. How many of us really buy something from a cold email? Have you guys ever got an email from somebody you don't know and just bought something because they asked? Probably not, right? But if you get somebody to meet you in person, have a good 10, 15-minute long conversation, they'll feel like they know you and they feel like they figured it out. And you can make the same pitch you would have done by email, and you'll close over 50% of those conversations where emails you are done. And that's the heart of building rapport, is they're gonna buy from you. If a prospect doesn't care about one of the things that you do well, don't bring it up, right? So if you've got really cool pricing software because you signed up for somebody here, or you've got a really cool door lock, if that landlord or real estate agent doesn't care about the topic, don't bring it up. The heart of a good presentation is bringing up the things that they care about. And so the way to do that is to listen first. Meet someone in person, start to ask about them, get to know what their history has been as a landlord or realtor, find out what their problems are, and all of the stuff that you know about short-term rentals, you're only gonna bring up the couple things that are relevant to the problems that they gave you, right? Don't pitch all the cool stuff you think is awesome, only talk about the things that they'll care about. And that comes from listening first. Now, when I talked about the single-family homeowner who only has one property, the version of swinging a big bat is to say, yeah, we can rent 5, 6, 7 houses from you when you buy them. That's like swinging a big bat in the future. With Susan, the one who's the syndicate owner, swinging a big bat would be like, hey, our company has a budget of about $1 million a year that we're looking to spend in rents in this neighborhood. And we'd like to give you as much of that as we can. I know that you have multiple buildings. Can we look at the comps of those buildings and see which ones work for us? You may not decide to spend $1 million a year in rent with Susan, but you talk about being capable of it, they're gonna be super interested to work with you. So talking a big game, even though you only plan on renting 2 or 3 today, and maybe renting 2 or 3 in a couple months, maybe renting 3 more in 6 months, that is one of the, best ways to get above people like Janet and get above Joshua even, and get to their boss. The bigger the game you talk, the higher risk it is to lose you. Because Janet at the bottom's like, this person could spend $30,000 a month at our property. I don't want to screw this up, right? So she's going to send you up the line. So if you've ever got stuck with a property manager, just talk bigger. Just talk bigger numbers. And if they take you seriously, they're going to not push you away because they can't afford to get in trouble for losing you. If you're talking about 1 apartment, they're like, oh, that landlord doesn't like that. But if you talk about 10 or 15, that property manager goes, if that landlord finds out that I'd said no to 15 leases and he would have said yes, I'll get fired. Makes sense, right? So know who you're pitching to, and that will allow you to make the right presentation in person when it matters. I'll be able to take questions later, but I'm gonna hand this off to TJ because once you've got this part down, there's a lot more cool stuff you can do with arbitrage. TJ, I'm gonna go for a Hail Mary pass with this thing. You might come? Okay.
Here we go, here we go. Y'all hear me okay? Okay, we good on sound. Okay, never mind. Okay, so here's the thing. Matter of fact, let me do a quick temperature check real quick. People in the room right now, just raise your hand real quick if you got at least one Airbnb going right now. I love it, because this is the good thing about being at STR conferences, is most people are experiencing the STR game. Raise your hand if you have at least 5 short-term rentals going right now. Fantastic. How many people in the room own their short-term rentals? How many people own it with traditional financing? Like you got a bank loan, fantastic. How many people have ever bought a piece of property with creative financing, not leveraging a bank, leveraging the seller as your bank, or taking over a loan? Fantastic, love it, love it, love it. So I have been in a short-term rental game since 2017. And my very first listing was actually a property I owned. I bought this property leveraging hard money funding, it was actually a private funding, structured like a hard money funding, furnished it, rehabbed it, furnished it, then I rented out. Then I got into rental arbitrage. And I feel very uniquely qualified to talk about exactly what I'm gonna teach y'all today, because I have immersed myself in the arbitrage game, but I've also been doing creative financing strategies since even before I got into doing short-term rentals. And so what we're doing in our community right now is we're kind of blending the both worlds. So what I'm teaching you guys, what I'm talking about, is we're taking arbitrage to another level. We're combining ownership with arbitrage. We're giving ourselves the best chance of owning this asset at the end of the lease term. We're talking about lease options, right? People don't know that you can actually do lease options to scale your short-term rental portfolio. You absolutely can. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to lease options, when we're talking about lease options, we're talking about rent to own. It's not too complicated. You may also hear this referred to as lease purchase. You may hear it referred to as lease purchase. So we're talking about you leasing with an option to buy. The two main documents that you need is your lease agreement and your option to purchase agreement, right? And I'm going to talk about how you can structure your payments to where you're getting credit for the payments that you make, the credit for the down payment that you put down. But guess what? I don't want you to put a lot of money down. Why? Because when we do lease options, we don't own these assets. We're leasing it, right? So we're not going to be putting a lot of money into the deals that we don't take title to, right? So now, what are good lease option candidates? Properties that are nice house, nice area. Listen, nice house, nice area, because when you do lease options, these properties can't be delinquent. They can't be behind on payments. They can't be behind on taxes. Matter of fact, I don't even want them to need rehab. Why? Because we're leasing this property on the front end. We're not buying, we don't have title on this property. So why I don't want you to lease option a property that you got to put money into it to fix it up and you don't have title to the property. So nice house, nice area. So these are nice houses. Low equity. And I say low equity because when we buy real estate, we always lead with buying it creatively. Matter of fact, I tell my students all the time, buy your deal as if you're broke. Act like you have no money in the bank and buy the deal that way. And so we do deals creatively. But at the end of the day, when it comes to lease options, a lot of times when we offer creative options to the seller, the biggest objection is them trusting us. Maybe they don't trust us, whatever the objection is. So the lease options is always the lowest hanging fruit. It's the best strategy that you can offer, especially if they don't take your sub-2 offer or your owner finance offer. And a lot of deals, we just lead straight into the lease option strategy. So again, nice house, nice area, but a lot of times these deals, because they're nice properties, nice areas, sometimes they're low equity. They don't have a lot of equity, but is that still works? Absolutely, yes, that still works for lease options. So owner needs full price or close to asking price. You can't just, a property that's trying to sell for $350, lowball them and say you want a lease option at $250,000. It doesn't necessarily work that way. Now here's the good thing. Once you structure a lease option deal, the price that you set is the price that you execute the purchase at. If you do a 3-year lease and the price appreciates, you're still getting it at the price that you locked it up on the front end of the property, right? The property needs to be moving ready. Again, we do not want to be putting a bunch of money into an asset that we don't take title to. No max price on any type of deal. Payments are current. They can't be behind. We talked about that earlier. No liens such as tax returns, and can also be done with multifamily. Now, why is lease option a great strategy, especially right now? Because we already know what's going on in the capital markets. We see where interest rates are going. We hope, we see, and honestly, I don't care what the heck the interest rates are. Deals are going to be done regardless. Deals are going to be done. So, but nonetheless, from a consumer perspective, these home prices are cooling because the interest rates are so high. So people are a lot more willing, per se, to do a creative deal with you to sell their property. So sellers who can't sell their property are more open to creative financial strategies. The house may be sitting vacant, maybe carrying 2 mortgages, property is not selling, right? Now, the seller gets to maintain on-time payments and a good credit because you are essentially buying this property, but you're paying them. And we always usually pay around the rental rate, whatever that rental rate is. Of course, everything is negotiable. Everything is negotiable. We always pay around the rental rate. So most of the time, 99% of the time, the seller is cash flowing, 99% of the time. Of course, there are people that can't qualify for loans and need more time, and so these are ways that people can also get into lease option strategy. But that is you getting into it as a tenant buyer, as somebody who's going to live there. We're talking about doing this deal as an investment, right? So there are 3 main lease option strategies. The first one is a simple lease option, very simple. I own a property, however way you own it, and I rent it on a lease option. I offer it as a lease option, a property that I own. That's a simple lease option. Second one is a sandwich lease. I don't know if y'all ever heard about a sandwich lease option, but a sandwich lease option means that I rent a property out. Say I rent it out for 2 years at $1,000 a month, and I sublease it out for $1,300 a month. That's a sandwich lease. Now, there are some states that you can't do a sandwich lease. It's literally illegal. Like in Texas, you can't do sandwich leases in Texas. You can only do straight leases in Texas if you're going to do lease options. So that's a sandwich lease. Then there's a wholesaler lease option. This is the way I got into creative financing. This is how I was closing 5 of these deals every single month when I was heavy into wholesaling. Wholesaling is also known as assignment. It's an assignment because what we would do, We would find a seller that wants to sell their property. We would put it under contract with a lease option. We'll sign a lease agreement. We'll sign an option to purchase agreement. Then I would go out and find a tenant buyer. I will go out and find a tenant buyer. The tenant buyer requirement, minimum 5% down they have to put down, 5% minimum. So tenant buyer puts down 5% to rent to own this property. My fee for finding the tenant buyer is 3% of that 5%. The seller takes 2, I keep 3. That's a wholesaling, that's how you wholesale lease option. That's an assignment lease option. We're assigning these deals. We were closing 5 of these deals every single month when we're doing creative financing, we're doing wholesaling. It's such an impressive add-on to whatever wholesaling operation you're already doing. So most people don't even know that this is even possible to do. But that's the third way of doing lease options. But what we're doing now is you are positioning yourself as a tenant buyer, and you are now taking these properties on, and you're running them as a short-term rental, with the short-term rental strategy, put them on Airbnb, Booking.com, the whole 9. Now, here's the rules to do a lease option. Lease could be 1 or 3 years. Now, of course, it could be longer. Can it be longer? Yes. But if our plan is to buy this property to eventually execute a purchase to make this and run it as a short-term rental while we wait to the end of the lease period, then it could be 1 or 3 years. It could be more. Everything is up for negotiation. Need your lease contract, the lease agreement, and the option of purchase, right? They need the option money, 1 to 2% down. I just told y'all, see, when we went to go find tenant buyers, we went to go find 5% down every single time. That was the minimum, 5% down. If you are running this play and you want to make this property a short-term rental and you are the tenant buyer, you are not putting down no more than 2%. That's my rule of thumb. Can you put down more? Yes, you can. Can you put down less? Yes, you can. My rule of thumb is I'd rather you not put down more than 2 because you don't own this property yet. Seller concession. This is honestly just part of the business model. We do seller concessions depending on what size the property is, whether it's anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000. That's a seller concession. And that just gets added. Now, I want y'all to understand this. A seller concession is not money that a seller's giving us. They're just giving us that credit if we execute the purchase. That's a credit they give us if we execute the purchase. Now, look at the rent credits. Again, negotiable. But we try to get 20% rent credits. So 20% of every payment that you make, you get credited for. Again, is the seller giving you this money back? They're not. They're giving you that credit if you execute the purchase, right? My last rule of thumb, set aside 20% of your gross income. Set aside 20%. Why? This is only help you even further cover your down payment when you want to execute the purchase at the end of the lease term, right? And so these literally, it could be this simple. It's 3 agreements that you need. You need the lease purchase agreement that just says, hey, we're entering a lease option or a lease purchase. Then you need a purchase agreement. Then you need the lease agreement. We still close this thing at a title company. Close at a title company. Still run a title search. Close at a title company. Now here's an example deal. This is actually, yeah, absolutely. Let's get out of the way, please. There's actually an actual deal. Seller on this deal was asking $320K for their property. Property was actually on a main road. She had a hard time selling it. Interest rates are higher. Property's on a main road. She had a hard time selling it. Property's on the market for over 90 days. And we approached her through an expired list. It's one of my favorite lists. I'm telling you, this is my favorite list to shop for, not just lease options, but creative financing deals, period. Expired listings. And so we reached out to them and said, hey, we noticed that your property listed for, you tried to sell your property, it went expired, or you're still trying to sell it, went through the whole situation, ended up going, she wanted $320 for the property, we agreed on $317. How this thing exactly worked out, we agreed, we went through the whole strategy over the phone, we agreed on a price, I went up to her house with all 3 agreements, we signed all 3 agreements, between the 2 of us, we signed all 3 agreements, and that's literally from that table. We took everything to the title company, and everything was done. That's pretty much it. Now, here's the thing: she wanted $320 for the property. $317 is what we agreed on. Option fee, down payment, $6,300. Down payment minus the down payment, that brings it to $310, $700. Then we factored in a seller concession of $3,000. Again, credit that we're getting, right? And that's a seller concession that we get that comes out of the seller's pocket at the end of the lease term. So then that brings us down to 307. Then when you factor in the option, the down payment that we put down, the seller's getting a total of 314. So when we get to the title company, we got two checks for the seller: $6,300 check and a $1,950 a check for $1,950, which is around the normal rent rate. The property rents for about $2,000 a month on average. And so the seller receives $314 plus $1,950 a month, and no payment, no commissions to us whatsoever. And this was a 18-month lease. Yeah, 18-month lease. And so all this is one way that you can get into rental arbitrage, but still be able to execute the purchase at the end of the lease term. Now, here's the thing. The caveat is you need to like this property. If you decide to not execute the purchase, do you get any money back?
No.
Not a dollar. If you're late on your payment, do you get any money back? Not a dollar. If you forfeit your lease for any reason, there's no money back. So you need to like this property. You need to have good intentions for this property, right? How many of y'all want to guess, just in a normal, I'm not even talking about doing a lease option to run it as a short-term rental, just in a normal lease option, how many people do you think buys a property with rent to own and execute the purchase? What percent do you think?
3.
1%. 1%. Anybody else got a guess?
3.
Say 8%. 3%? Somebody said 15 earlier. 15? It's about 5%. It's about 5% of people execute the lease. Y'all want to guess how many execute the purchase on an owner finance deal? Y'all know the difference? Y'all know the difference between owner finance and lease option? Literally, the only difference is one title transfers, one title doesn't. That's really the main difference between the two. Y'all know how many owner finance percentage, on average, execute the actual purchase? I mean, actually pays it off and not get foreclosed on. Because, see, owner finance title transfers, you own it. So if you don't pay, you get foreclosed. You don't get evicted, you get foreclosed. And so you need to, at some point in time, either refinance and cash out your seller, or now you don't, well, the person you bought it from, seller technically, or sell the property. Well, you can imagine it's a lot more higher percentage, a whole lot more higher percentage. So it's something about title transferring and title not transferring. And this is why this could be a low-hanging fruit when you're looking to buy a property or do anything creative with a seller. If a seller's pushing back on anything I want to do regarding sub 2, if I want to buy the property, if I want the seller to be my bank, and they're pushing back, I always, my last option is always to offer lease options. Now, when we're just on a path to just grow our portfolio, man, we're just looking for nothing but lease option deals. That's it. We're buying lease option deals. And I'm telling you right now, if you pull an expire list, you pull an expire list, you talk to 15 sellers a day, it's about maybe less, about an hour worth of work, you will have a deal closed within 30 days. For sure. I'm not even gassing that. It's consistency, right? And the thing about it is that, when it comes to these kind of real estate deals, y'all are, I don't know how many of y'all are actually actively looking for deals consistently, right? like that. But at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's consistency, it's staying with it. So any questions on, I know Sean's still here. How many more minutes we got? Okay.
So, we're targeting sellers that have expired listings, greater than 90 days.
I like expire. Honestly, don't have to be 90 days. I love expired listings. If they're, oh, my bad. I'm asking again on the mic, by the way. Yeah, he's asking again on the mic.
Just trying to level set, like, who are we targeting? Are they expired listings greater than 90 days? I know Pace, when he's talking about some of the sub 2, that's generally where he's looking at.
Yeah.
Is that what you're recommending here to start and then have another question?
Yeah. I love expired listings to really just buy creative real estate anyway. Just any kind of creative real estate. Expired list is my favorite list to buy creative real estate. But that's the main list for lease options is expires. That's what we use mainly. And FSBOs, for sale by owners. FSBOs are a good list for lease options as well.
And so once you're in the negotiation with this seller, then is this typically a parlay into short-term rental to sublease within that agreement, or is that a whole other layer that?
The seller knows exactly what we're doing with the property. The seller knows exactly that we're gonna furnish a property, turn it to a short-term rental, and there's never been an objection to that. Because here's the thing about tenant, we're not tenants, we're tenant buyers. Seller knows that. Seller knows that we see ourselves as buyers. And so they're not gonna tell us like, oh, you can't do this. They're not telling us what we can or cannot do to the property whatsoever.
And when you're negotiating the price,